Hello everyone. The lesson today is about basic 5 cardiovascular diseases. Part of Unit 3, the circulatory system. Well, what is a cardiovascular disease? It's a disease on your heart, you see here in the background, or on one of your blood vessels. Let me guide you through that step by step. The reason why this lesson is so important is because cardiovascular diseases are a very big problem here in the Netherlands. If we look at the causes of death, we can see that cardiovascular diseases even beats cancer. You hear a lot of people dying from cancer. Well, I hope not in near your neighborhood, but 30% of all deaths in the Netherlands is caused by cancer. But just by a very tiny margin, cardiovascular diseases are even a bigger problem. So this is why it's very important to know a bit more about this and how that we can prevent this. Because cardiovascular diseases are a lot of the times not really necessary and you can prevent them. Well, we have all other diseases, and even lung diseases are an entire category on its own. That's also very lethal for a lot of people. Well, we can see some other very uplifting stuff right there, but we see that it is only a few percentages, and cardiovascular diseases, well, almost make up a third of all the deaths caused of all the deaths here in the Netherlands. And just funny to mention that terrorism is really at the bottom here, and of course it's a big problem, but it's not nearly as big as the cardiovascular disease problem, because terrorism accounts for only 0.0004% of all deaths. This was the data from 2017, so it's a bit older already, but it gives you a good indication. Okay, well, let's look at cardiovascular diseases and what they actually are. It's a collective term used for all possible diseases on the heart, which is the cardio. The cardio literally means heart in Latin. So the cardio part of the word means heart. And the blood vessels. And vessels, you can kind of, well, recognize the vessel in vascular. So we mean cardio, heart, vascular, we mean blood vessels. So heart and blood vessel diseases. In Dutch, it's also hart- en vaatziekte. You might have recognized it. You might be familiar with that. And it has usually two main causes. Atherosclerosis, which is a very difficult word, and I'll come back to it later, or high blood pressure. High blood pressure is much more common than low blood pressure. Some people might have low blood pressure. That can cause some problems as well, but it's really easy to cure actually. And high blood pressure is less obvious to cure. And it's actually not that difficult to obtain. There are a lot of causes for a higher blood pressure. For example, just by getting older, your blood pressure usually goes up as well, because your arteries are not as elastic anymore as in your younger days. So, well, the blood is not really caught that strongly anymore. Even stress can reduce your blood pressure, or medicines. Some side effects cause higher blood pressure, and even limited exercise or a bad nutrition, so bad diet, food habits, could also cause some higher blood pressure. Well, let's see what atherosclerosis is, the other difficult word leading to a higher blood pressure. In Dutch, it's slagaderverka. You can see it there, and it literally is, well, a blockade of your blood vessels. It's really nasty if you think about it. In the top part of the picture, you can see a normal artery. So we mainly talk about arteries here and not veins, because arteries usually have these problems because the arteries have the high blood pressure. And, well, the blood can flow through nice and easy. On the bottom picture, you can see some plaque, as it is indicated here. Well, it's a sort of deposit from chalky calcium. It's very rigid, so it's not really elastic. It can't really move, and it's really stuck, and it sticks to the walls of your arteries. Now your blood vessel is blocked, and you only have this tiny part which you can actually use for your blood flow. So there is just as much blood, just as much volume, but now squeezed into a much tinier surface, to a much tinier volume. So this is why the atherosclerosis automatically causes a higher blood pressure. You get a reduced blood flow, but even your elasticity of the vessels, well, it's a bit compromised. So that's a big problem. It is mainly caused by a high cholesterol, and cholesterol is a sort of fatty substance. And if you have elevated levels of cholesterol in your blood, you have a higher risk of developing atherosclerosis, because these parts can stick to your blood vessel walls. Especially when your blood vessels have some kind of damage. When there's a tiny crack in here, it's really easy for well, even platelets to stick to it. Also cholesterol. This is a problem, because if you have a higher blood pressure, you get damaged arteries a bit faster. And if you get damaged arteries, you get atherosclerosis. But if you get atherosclerosis, you get an elevated blood pressure. So your blood pressure gets even higher. And if you have an even higher blood pressure, you get even more atherosclerosis. So it's a kind of, well, vicious cycle. That's really a problem. So what's the worst about this is that if you have a completely blocked vessel, which in some cases could happen, that this plug could take over the entire interior of the blood vessel, and it is completely blocked, we could have a major problem, especially when this is in the heart itself. Hopefully you remember that in the heart we have a very important artery and a very important vein. I told you, because of the high blood pressure, the arteries are mainly the problem. So in this part, this is the coronary artery, and the coronary artery, once that is blocked, and I mean completely blocked, not just a bit, we have a major problem, because if the coronary artery is blocked, there is no blood coming to your heart cells anymore. So, well, this is a bit of a Dutch picture, but you get this. If this artery becomes blocked, well, the cells in here, afstervend, they will literally die. Why would they die? Think about that for yourself. It's actually because of some reasons we discussed in the previous unit in respiration, because your cells don't get any oxygen anymore, no oxygen at all. So they can't do any respiration, so no energy. Well, that obviously leads to death. If a big enough chunk of the heart doesn't get any oxygen supply at all anymore, your heart will just stop, and then you'll get a sort of heart attack. Well, that's a real big problem. Then you get a cardiac arrest, as we call it. But the heart attack is actually the blood vessel being blocked off. This could be because of the atherosclerosis, but also because of a blood clot. In many cases, it's just platelets which stuck together as a big ball, and they are a bit too chunky now, too big, and they don't fit through all the tinier vessels anymore, and they just become stuck. Well, this is obviously something we want to prevent. We have some solutions for pretty, well, alarming cases, and we can use angioplasty, which is, in Dutch, is you place a stent in the blood vessels. And here on the side of me, you can see how it works. We use a thread, we go right into your blood vessel, all the way to the place of interest, where the blood vessel is blocked. And inside of this, well, tiny metal raster, there's a balloon, and we can actually just pump it up with air. So the stent, which is this metal part, it gets stretched, the stent stays in place perfectly fine, and then we just leave the air, we let the air out of the balloon, and we pull out all the rest, but the stent still remains, and now the blood vessel is opened again. So this could really help. Another thing that is sometimes done when we have a sort of blockage, you can see in the picture beneath me, you see that there's a blockage of the coronary artery right here. and well, there's no blood coming from there anymore. So what I did is a bypass surgery. This is a difficult procedure for some surgeons. You need to construct a detour for the blood vessels. It's literally a detour. We just make a new route. So by just adding sort of a new blood vessel from here, from this one to there, to the coronary artery, which is not blocked, well, the heart still gets its oxygen supply. These new blood vessels, well, where did I come from? These are usually parts from your own blood vessels that just took them out of your legs, for example, and then just added them here to your heart. Yes, it sounds a bit crazy, but it's actually pretty beautiful that it works that way, right? And you can still prevent a lot of damage to the heart. So we have angioplasty or bypass surgery. Both are perfectly fine ways to solve this. So we don't want any atherosclerosis or blood clot in the heart, but another very important organ which you don't want to get blocked is your brain. If your brain is blocked, well, many vital functions for your life could be in danger. If a blood vessel to your brain is blocked, we call this a stroke. A stroke is a blood vessel in the brain, and it has the same causes as with a heart attack. It could be because of a blood clot or atherosclerosis. What is really important when you get a stroke or when you see someone getting a stroke, you need to act fast. And I use this really nice abbreviation. It's really clear because you can remember that it has something to do with the face, the arms, the speech, and the time. So when someone is having a stroke, part of their brain doesn't get any oxygen anymore. If this goes on for too long, well, huge part of the brain could die. So they could have lasting brain damage, which is not something you would want. So you need to act really fast to solve this and immediately go to a hospital or the intensive care. And well, if someone is having a stroke, you could see sometimes that he has facial weaknesses. If the person cannot really smile anymore, or part of their face is like really droopy, that could be an indication for a stroke. The same goes for the arms. Sometimes the arms are really weak or numb, or even a bit paralyzed. You can't really move it anymore the way you want. Or people with a stroke cannot really speak anymore. Their speech is really affected. So when you see these things, you need to call 911, it says here, but this is in English, so 112 in Dutch, for the ambulance immediately. And if you do this fast, that can actually reverse a lot of damage, and well, the person could still recover pretty well. But it's important to know how to act when someone could have a stroke, which is not a really fun situation at all. It's terrible. The same goes for the cardiovascular diseases. I told you that the cardiovascular diseases were, well, maybe the leading cause of death. But we can reduce this risk as much as possible by just keeping a healthy lifestyle. It's important to know that this is just reducing the risk. It doesn't mean that if you live a really healthy lifestyle that you have no chance at all on a cardiovascular disease. It could still go wrong by just any bad luck. Same for people who smoke regularly, for example. Some people don't notice any effects at all, even at older age. But that could just be lucky. It's all about risks and, well, having good or bad luck. But if you stick to a healthy diet, not too much salt, not too much saturated fat, moderate alcohol, well, I hope you don't drink already, but alcohol is not really good as well for cardiovascular diseases. You need to exercise regularly, not smoke, and maintain a healthy body weight. And then you could prevent cardiovascular diseases by a lot already. So this is why it's so shocking that this is one of the leading causes, because you could have a reduced risk by just living a healthy lifestyle. Well, that's it for now. Try to remember some key words I used. Atherosclerosis. What is a heart attack? What is a stroke? And I think then you'll be fine. Thank you.